delighted to have here today with us one of, I believe, the most renowned development critics. He is author of numerous books, such as Ending Aid Dependency, Aid Dependence and Demystifying Aid, just to name two. Yesterday he was presenting this new book, Trade is War, which will also be a part of today's lecture, of course, the content of it. He is honorary professor at Warwick and London Middlesex Universities, currently in the United Kingdom, and is founder chairman of CEATINI, the Southern and Eastern African Trade Information Negotiations Institute, and was for several years the executive director of the South Center, Southern Global South think tank. Yes, I just wrap it up by this. I think we will talk today about development aid, the system of development aid, what it's about, and who really it serves. If it is something to be maybe revised or reformed, such as the post-2015 process also suggests, that there have been failures or something that have to be remedied, and then we can go on and really achieve development, or who does it really serve? And in which contexts do we have to see it, especially in the context, if we bridge it to the topic of trade, and of course the whole financing issue of this development agenda. I'll leave it by this, I think, and give you the floor, and we will have around 15 to 20 minutes introduction statement by Professor Tandon, and then open it to your questions, and let's hope to have a really lively conference. Just one small technical issue. For those who haven't signed yet the participant list, please do so. It's always important, and also you will help us to fill out these small feedback sheets that you found on the seats for our evaluation process of this day. So, please, Mr. Tandon.
Thank you very much. Thank you to AfricAvenir for having me here. I warned the chairman that I'm an old professor. If he provoked me, I could talk for an hour or so. So now he said, keep it to 15 minutes. That's what I will do, because I do want to have dialogue with you. It's a complex one, not as it appears at first sight. It is a good feeling aspect to it, but if you go deeper, you find that lying under the surface is a monster. Lying under the surface is a huge war machine. Let me explain. There are certain types of assistance that I am quite happy with. If there's an earthquake somewhere, cyclone, natural disaster, and people are in serious difficulty, yes, I think it will be inhuman to ignore that if you can assist people in distress of that kind. If there is a humanitarian crisis like what you are facing here, what we as a world are facing in the form of refugees, then it will be also not human to assist people. Obviously, those types of assistance are legitimate and noble. Development aid is something else altogether. Completely different beast. To understand development aid, you have to understand the whole paradigm of growth and economic growth and development on the one hand, and you have to understand also the dynamics that goes on within the United Nations system. Let me come to the second one first, the UN system. The United Nations system is a chamber for negotiations. UN is not a world government, it's an intergovernmental body in which representatives of state come to present their national positions and then they negotiate. When you come to negotiate, there is a text prepared. Somebody writes out a text on what development aid is, and the text is then negotiated between the member countries. In the case of so-called development aid, the text came from OECD. You know OECD? Yes, Organization for Economic Community and Development, based in Paris. It's a rich man's club, rich countries club. So they prepared the text. The text then comes to the United Nations Secretariat. And the United Nations Secretariat is also dominated by the big and powerful countries. United States, Europe, Japan. And that Secretariat works on that text that includes the definition of development and aid in that text. And that development is equated with growth. Growth of the economy, which can be measured statistically. GDP, you have heard of GDP, gross domestic product, yes? Or per capita, you know all these concepts, yeah? And they define that this is our objective for growth globally and in the countries of the South. And in order for the countries of the South to be able to meet their basic needs of survival and social welfare, you require X percentage of growth, 4%, 7%, whatever it is, and that's how the text is worded. If you look into the text and look at the concepts that are used in the text, you'll see that there are concepts that are loaded concepts. Growth. Now, who can be possibly against growth? We all want growth, isn't it? But if you dismantle the concept of growth, and the GDP, gross domestic product, and you ask yourself, what is in it? You'll be surprised. I live in the UK and I carried out a quick survey of what is growth in the UK. I dismantled it. And you know what is the growth the UK consists of? 3 things. 1, City of London. City of London is the bank, one of the global centers of the banking industry. What do? They create money out of nothing. Just floating in the air. It is no asset base. Paper money creating more paper money. And the stocks flying out in the air with their own values, it had no relationship with the reality of asset base on the ground at all. The more paper money they create, the more there is growth in UK. Can you imagine that? Fictitious growth. The second source of growth in UK is what? Guess what? Making bombs. Arms industry. One of the biggest in the world. I think Germany is probably catching up, I don't know. But the United States is the biggest, and the British sell billions of dollars of armaments to just Saudi Arabia. Between 3 and 6 billion every year, just to one country, Saudi Arabia. And then Saudi Arabia uses that against Yemen and kill people in Yemen. The more bombs Britain produces, the more growth it has. Its GDP increases. The irony is that working class people who work in the arms industry are the ones most opposed to dismantling the arms industry because they had their jobs, they're wage earners. So you can sympathize with them. But the corporations that fund the industry, arms industry, are the ones who are making profit, and the state uses that to kill people. That's their growth. The third major source of growth in UK is, guess what? Drugs. Both legitimate drugs, pharmaceutical. We have a friend here who knows about pharmaceutical drugs. Both pharmaceutical and illicit. Now, that's growth. I can go on and on, but I studied economics. When many of you were not around, I studied economics in 1957. How many were you around? 57? Not many, huh? And I believed what I was learning at that time in the university, and I found that I was taught ideology. Economic theory is ideology. It's a class ideology. It's a state ideology. It's an ideology of imperial countries. And I found that these concepts were, our whole literature is built around these concepts, and these concepts had there were no basis in reality. They were abstracted from reality. There is lack of existential connection between concepts and reality. And I have to say later on, I hope we discuss that. Please warn me when I'm going too much into time. That there is similar lack of connection between, let me be provocative, your government's policies and the reality on the ground. Because the government policies, not just in Germany, but entire Europe and the empire, USA and so on, are based on neoliberal economics. You know that? Market economics. Yeah? You know that? You can ask me questions later on, I'll explain more. Which talks about free trade, isn't it? There should be free market, let markets open. And if markets are open and people engage in trade, they will be able to prosper together. That's a lie. There is nothing called free trade, ever. Ever. It's an ideology. Even during the height of the English mercantile system in the 18th century, there was no free trade. It's an ideology. It's a monopoly trade. It's a trade cornered by the corporations that appropriate the labor of our people, not just in Africa, but also in your own countries, and natural resources. A resource war going on. I just give the example of growth only to illustrate the point that we are trapped in concepts. We think in concepts. And concepts like aid and growth distance our thinking from the reality on the ground. Now, these are the concepts that come within the UN system. And these experts bring out texts called development, aid, development, and those concepts are loaded by ideologies of the West in order to basically self-serve, service their own interests. So when they say we are supporting development, we are giving development aid to eradicate poverty, you look at the reality on the ground. The poverty has increased vastly over the last one generation. Africa is poorer today than 30 years ago. I come from Uganda. I know it for it. I come from East Africa. I come from Africa. I know. I traveled in Africa. If we have 500,000 refugees coming to Europe, it's nothing. We have 60, 70, 100 million people in Africa dispossessed of their land, thrown out of their land. They are deprived of the means of livelihood. Our natural resources are appropriated by global corporations. You go to a shop in Kampala, where I come from, you can buy chicken legs from Belgium. We have a lot of chicken in Uganda. But our chicken farmers can't compete against the Belgian chicken. And you call that free trade? What kind of freedom is that? No. I can go on and on. What we are confronted with is a disaster. The green parties in Europe talk about sustainable development. It's an illusion. There is never likely to be sustainable development as long as there is capitalism. Capitalism is based on appropriation of nature, oil, natural resources and so on. It is in the DNA of capitalism to appropriate nature. I do welcome the Green Party's thinking that we must save our nature, of course. This is the only habitat we have. This is probably the only planet we have in the solar system that has got life. And we are destroying it. So we must do that. But under capitalism, no possibility, ever. It's a contradiction. Capitalism and natural environment protection. It's a contradiction. Okay, so this kind of thing comes to the UN and they negotiate. And you had the Millennium Development Goals that you mentioned. And the Millennium Development Goals had about 10 goals. 9 of them were statistical, on health, education, and so on. You know about MDGs, Millennium Development Goals? Please question me if you, later on. And you negotiate. The text is coming from OECD, from Brussels, or Paris, sorry. Goes to UN. Bureaucrats work it out, as defined by the rich, powerful empire. And then they invite these countries of the South, including big countries, India, China, Brazil, come later They are not part of OECD. Let's negotiate. So they look at this, they say, hey, we agree, you know, we must improve our education, we must improve health, and, yeah, we can't disagree. Then they say, well, there is one thing lacking. So the rich countries say, what is lacking? They say, well, why don't you also look at the whole system? Because unless you look at the cause of poverty, you can't address poverty. So they have put the 10th one. Systemic issues. Negotiated, United States says, okay, we'll accept it. But you accept the 9? You say, okay, accept it 9. Then comes the implementation. The systemic issue is never raised again, ever. The question of why there is poverty is never raised again. There is no analysis. Meantime, our bureaucrats are caught up in trying to work out the 9 statistical points, you know. I attended a meeting in Kigali. I was called by the president of Kigali, of Rwanda. And they were a meeting of the donors, OECD, and well, all flag of them. It's like the Berlin Conference of 1884, sitting there. And the Rwandese ministers were coming 2 by 2, and, you know, and putting down graphs of how well they were doing in education, health, pie charts, colorful graphs, and so on. And I'm an economist. And I took, on the tea time, I talked to 1 or 2 of them. I said, but I don't understand all this. I said, oh, Professor, don't worry. Professor, this is not for you, this is for these donors. They like pie charts, we give them pie charts. But you know, this time we spent in collecting their data is so much we can do development without these things. It's hilarious. It's theatre of the absurd. You don't have to go to Kafka or to understand the absurdity of all this. Or Goethe, my friend here reminded me of Goethe, to show the contradictions. Faust was amazing, amazing theatre. No, we have the theatre of the absurdity in this world, legitimized by the UN system. So now we have sustainable development goals. From the 10, we have 19. Again, negotiated. Now, there is some reality about what I call the diplomatic text, because it's worked out diplomatically by government, so they are bound by that. But there's a big hiatus, big gap between the diplomatic reality and existential reality. There is no connection, total disconnect. So our people get fooled because they say, oh, this is coming from the United Nations, therefore this must be okay. Not okay. The UN is run by the big and powerful. World Trade Organization is run by the big and powerful. IMF, same. Now, when we in Africa were shouting for 30 years, saying that in return for aid, so-called development aid, we were subjected to conditionalities called structural adjustment programs. Have you heard of that? SAPs. Imposing austerity on us and demanding on us to open up our countries to free flow of capital and goods, lower down the protection barriers. These are the conditions. And we, civil society, our government signed them because they were aid dependent. Our governments were made structurally dependent on aid, so-called aid, which is a bomb. Nobody listened to us when we were shouting against that. I mean, I've been working on this issue for more than 30 years. What years? I used to come to Europe and talk about that. And when you invited me to talk about aid, I said, I'm not coming. Remember, I told you, I wrote a letter to you. I said, no, I'm sick and tired of talking about aid. Nobody listens to us. Nothing changes. They go and give us development aid. But she persuaded me to come. So here I am, and I am telling you, if I may, from experience, that so-called development aid is a war machine. Aid is an instrument of war. Now that Greece is involved in that, there is little more debate in Europe now. Because poor Syriza, poor Tsipras, that came to power with surprisingly strong support from the people, thought that they had now democratic power in their hands to go and negotiate with the European Union and the Trinity, IMF and so on. You know the rest of the story, yeah? I don't have to tell you that. You pay or else we'll close your banks. Your people will not be able to draw cash from the banks. You'll starve. Isn't it? Now poor Tsipras comes back and he renegotiates. He can't get his way. He now signs that austerity act. Austerity D. Goes back. He has no choice but to go to elections again. Go back to get democratic mandate from the people. Comes back to power. But Syriza is split, as you know. And poor my friend Tsipras is going to chair colonization of Greece, for sure. For sure. And that's where Africa is colonized. We had political independence when we fought for liberation, yes. But we own nothing in our countries. You go to Johannesburg, South Africa, massive city, buildings and so on, created out of mining wealth, mineral wealth. None of the buildings are owned by the people of South Africa. They're owned by the Mutual Trust. It's an English company that used to be there in South Africa. Now it's demutualized and it's based in London. So all the buildings are owned by foreigners. You step out of Johannesburg, all the forests are owned by them. You go beyond that, mines are owned by them. You see the banks, insurance companies, shipping agents. There was never an independence of South Africa. It's illusion. We never had independence in Africa. Political independence, yeah. So we have put in power, heads of states who can now negotiate for us. Negotiate what? They can't. They are like Tsipras. Negotiate what? That seat that Tsipras occupied as head of state, that seat did not belong to him. He just sat there. That seat belonged to the treaty, belonged to the IMF and the European Commission. In reality, that state did not belong to. You know that? In reality, huh? They make policies, not Tsipras. Same with our African countries. Our heads of state sit there. It's a comedy of errors, but tragedy. We don't make policies. The empire makes policies. Now when I talk about the word empire, a lot of people in Europe tell me, Professor, there is nothing called empire anymore. We have decolonized. Colonies are gone. Especially in England, when I say empire is still there, they say, no, we gave you independence, remember? And I say, yeah, well, empire mutates. Like all dangerous viruses mutate. Takes new forms. Britain ruled Uganda and France ruled Algeria. Now they both get together. Europe collectively rules Africa, joined by United States and Japan. So there is collective imperialism. Bilateral imperialism transmuted into collective imperialism of the West. Through institutions they created, IMF, World Bank they created, GATT, World Trade Organization they created. Africa was not even present in all of this. And these become instruments of governance, global governance, and totally undemocratic. So we get development aid from Germany or from Finland or Scandinavian countries. We give you development aid to improve your governance because there is a democratic deficit in your countries. You see, you are dictators, and so we give you development aid to improve your democratic. Hey, you can laugh at that. IMF is not democratic. World Bank is not democratic. I attended the World Trade Organization conference in Hong Kong. And I was part of the Zambia delegation as part of the LDC countries, least developing countries. We negotiated this kind of text. Last day, the chairman of the conference came and he read the text. Now that text was worked out behind the scenes by the big powers. United States, Europe, Japan, and they included China and India, Brazil. Even China, India, Brazil did not see the final text. The final text was worked out by the Secretariat of the WTO in collusion with the United States and Europe, OECD countries. So the chairman came and read it. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Just quickly. Agreed? Agreed. Boom. Gavel was down. Hey, we hadn't seen the text. African states, I was working with them, didn't object. I said to my delegation, I said, Zambia delegation, you must protest. They said, no. They will cut off our aid. We can't survive. We keep quiet. We have not seen the text, but better keep quiet. Yes, don't speak. Keep quiet. Then from behind there were 600 of us there. And Venezuelan and Cuban ambassadors got up. Say, we protest, we don't agree, we have not seen the text, we do not give our consensus to that. The chairman said, okay, noted. Okay. No, so they ran. I was there. They ran, the two of them. One was a lady from, I think, Venezuela. She came to the podium. She said, Mr. Chairman, we don't agree with the text. Now, in the UN, in the WTO system, decision by consensus. You know what that means? That if one state disagrees, there is no consensus. So he said, okay, we have noted that. So I go to Geneva and I talk to these lawyers in Geneva and the World Trade Organization, friends of mine. I said, what happened in Hong Kong? Do you agree? There was no consensus. Professor, where do you live? I live in Geneva. Is something wrong with it? This is real life. I said, but you're a lawyer. Don't you want to protect the nobility of your profession? Cynical. They get their salaries, they get their pensions, why should they bother? Cynical. No, no, no. This world is ruled by thoroughly, I'm choosing my word carefully, fascist system globally. Pigs are intelligent, but they pretend to be stupid. The empire is the other way around. Stupid, but pretending to be intelligent. Worse than pigs. Sorry, I told you I'm going to be provocative because I'm now an old man. I've seen enough. We have tried enough to change the world. And what I am afraid of is that we are getting into a worse situation. The empire is collapsing. This civilization is collapsing. The European civilization is coming to the end after 600 years. It did very well in the beginning. The science and technology development under capitalism was fantastic. But capitalism has now become destructive. Empire is losing, and the only thing left for them is what? War. My book talks about trade is war. I didn't talk much about my book, but we can talk about that in the discussion. Trade is war. Unmitigated war, relentless war on our people, devastated our economies over the last 30 years. But what we are going to have is militarization of our countries. And what's happening in Middle East and Somalia and Africa. And in your own countries, by the way, is militarization. That's what we are facing together. And we, you and me, I hope I count you amongst me as friends, we are the majority. We constitute 99% of the population of the globe, but this 1% controls everything. I see my chairman is giving me signals. I'll stop here. I have provoked you enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.